Inside at last.
Welcome, fellow taffers, to Inside at Last, the one and only thief-dedicated podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined by Nex, and today we have a very special guest. The community was very excited to hear about this. Welcome, Anthony. Hi.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Or maybe better known in the community as Purah. Am I right?
Yeah.
But today we will address you as Anthony. As I said before, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure, and it's really great that you took your time. We try to be focused because your time is very worth it. And yeah, maybe you can start maybe introducing yourself, like who you are, maybe just circle what you are doing and what are your amazing many hobbies. just a short about it, if that's
Sure.
possible.
Okay. So I'm Anthony Huso. I am old now, 49, and I have always loved telling stories, especially stories with monsters, and so I've been drawing and writing and painting miniature figures, playing Dungeons and Dragons, and playing video games for a long time. And so I still kind of do all of those things. And
So
I
generally
currently
you're a
live in
nerd.
Texas. Yeah, I am a huge nerd. And thankfully, nerds have taken over the world.
I think nerd is the new sexy, what I heard from, so it's great.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah. No, yeah, because you do so many things. Before we started recording, you told us a bit what you have done in the past, where you have lived, what language you can speak, blah, blah, blah. It's very impressive just from that. But of course, there's a thing that impressed many people on the community, which is the main focus, of course, of this podcast. So you were starting in our discussion before, like how you got to play, or how you stumbled over Thief, right? Where I interrupted you because this is maybe a story for here. So maybe for all the taffers out there, maybe you can tell us like how you came to the Thief games and why you think they are so great. I think you think that.
I do think that, in fact, yes. So this was, Thief had just come out in the stores, right? So I can't even remember what year that might have been, 98 or something like this. And I was recently married. I was working at a financial institution. I was in middle management. I didn't have tons of money, and I sort of hated my job maybe a little bit at the time. And so I needed a distraction. I went into the game store and I was going to buy a game. And I don't remember what the other game was at the time, but I remember holding up the Thief box. It was this weird triangular shape, right? And to be honest, I looked at the back of it and the graphics looked like shit. And I thought, man, I'm not going to buy this game. And so I put it down and I had the other one in my hand, but there was something about the text on the back. I don't recall what it is, but it captured my imagination. And so I picked it back up and I was holding it and sort of deciding between these two games. And ultimately, I just sort of settled on this Thief game. I said, well, I'll give it a try, even though it looks not so great. And I took it home. I was blown away because I was in the Bafford mission and I walked up the street and the guard was coming down the street and I was standing there sort of wondering what to do. And he said, how's it going? And that kind of interaction with an NPC is very simple, right? But it startled me. I had not experienced that before. And so it immediately captured my imagination. And I think back to that moment in the store where I was holding these two games in my hands, right? If I had picked the other game, I wouldn't have done fan missions. I wouldn't have gotten a job in the industry probably. My whole life would be different, right?
Whoa.
And so would ours. I mean, this reminds me, you know how Tolkien was fought in the First World War,
Yeah.
or was it the second? I think it was first. It doesn't matter, but you know, it was like there was one. We were one bullet away from not having Lord of the Rings, and
For sure.
you deciding between two games. To me, it's like the same thing. It's like the legacy would never happen. It kind of scares me right now.
Would never compare myself to Tolkien, but sure, okay.
But this is really interesting. This is a great story, like that this game was a game changer for you, for your life, maybe. Or
Absolutely.
pretty sure. When you talked about this, how you first picked it up and you looked at the box and all this, I had goosebumps because I can totally relate to this. Yeah, that's emotions. So this was the game changer for you. So, but what was it about when you played the game? Like, why did it take over you so much, so that you decided to get into this industry?
Oh, you know, the experience playing Thief the Dark Project was, like I said, different from any other game I had played. It scared me. You know, I was terrified while I was playing because it's a game that you're physically weak, and I wasn't really about testing the limits of the mechanics. I was more about embracing the fiction of the setting. And so, you know, I didn't learn the tricks about how you can dance around and break the AI and stuff like that. I sort of committed to having the experience of playing a thief. And this worked really well because I realized that while I was sitting there in the dark in an alcove on a tiled floor, listening to the armored guard coming down the hall on the tiled floor, that I could go to the refrigerator and make myself a sandwich and wait there, and I was still playing the game, even though I was doing nothing. And to realize that, it was very novel at the time. The amount of, you know, anxiety I felt while playing the game was very significant, and I just fell in love with this mood, the strangeness of this city, its weird technology, all of that stuff. And so I decided that I wanted to tell a story in that world. And so that's what prompted me to break open the editor and start playing around with it.
So at that time, did you already have like experiences with level creators?
Absolutely not. Nothing.
Okay, so no, like because some people come from like Quake or something, but you hadn't. So very opportunistic to do that. So, but what you describe is like, I think, really to the point about the thief thing. And I can imagine, like as you said, you like stories, and that's what I read in the README file from the Calendra's Legacy, where you said that this is a different approach on Garrett and the world. Because you like stories, but I can imagine that Thief, for its time, with that maybe let's call it environmental storytelling, even though it's just basically letters you read. But I think, or I can imagine that all those little side stories and the big story, which is actually pretty nice, I think, had an impact on you. All right, or was it like your taste?
Yeah, it was. The original Thief story was very much to my taste. I loved it. I think that's the question you asked me. So I don't know. Of course, any story that you love a lot probably resonates with you forever after. And so it probably has subconscious impacts on you. I don't know that it that it did. I don't know that it was life changing, but obviously the game itself made me look at video games in a new way, right? So that was very life changing for me.
When you first started editing, how long did it take you? Of course, we can look up in the Thief Missions website, but you came up with before the Calendra Cistern. You made another mission, right?
Yeah, that was Autumn and Lampfire Hills. I think there was, I don't know. I mean, I made some test map type of things.
Shadow of Rothchest.
Oh, right. Yeah, I had almost forgotten about this one.
So Nex is well prepared. And I think Lampfire Hills, this is a well-received one, right? Or how was the reaction from the community back then?
I don't recall. I think, it was a little bit buggy, and I had done crazy things like tried to make a jack-o'-lantern out of brushes, which I should be punished for. But yeah, I mean, I think it was.
I remember.
It was okay.
I remember playing the Lampfire the first time, and as we go on, we're going to talk about Cistern and Legacy, and maybe Supreme will have the same opinion. But I remember playing the Lampfire Hills the first time, and it had its downsides and it had its upsides, but there was something about the mission that was different from other missions in a way that it just had this atmosphere, even in the places that I didn't particularly like. Well, through the years, the mission, of course, grew with me immensely. But yeah, just the atmosphere. I mean, if you look at it now, when we have years of experience in the creative community, you can see that this must have been one of the first missions, but still, it's just the details. It does immerse you in the world, immensely, and it's amazing. I mean, even with the name, like Autumn in Lampfire Hills. If I didn't know now, I'd ask you if you're a writer, because I'd steal the name from my mission any day.
Those locations were actual locations in the city. They were districts in the city setting of my first novel, and so that it might be that I had been working on this novel in the background, right? And so I took Merkbell and Lampfire Hills and these places and sort of use them in the fan missions, because why not? It was a name that I had on the tip of my tongue, sort of.
So is it kind of like bringing your thoughts or your novel ideas into a 3D environment?
No, it's those things are very much separate, but there's just sort of there's bleed over in terms of themes, in terms of naming things. It's almost like doing an homage to your other thing that you're also working on.
Homage yourself.
Which sounds,
that's amazing.
Well, it's a little funny. It sounds a little funny, but I think that's probably fairly common for creative folks to riff on an idea or have a double use for a thing, that they've come up with. But
I totally agree with that, Jess. Because you just mentioned Merkbell already. Maybe there's the first question from Clitrimus. He is from the community. He's a well-received Supreme Ghoster. So he has a standing as well. And he asked, where did you get the inspiration to create the city of Merkbell? To him, it's the first map that made me feel like I was in a real city. So what was the inspiration?
So I found myself to be dissatisfied with Thief levels in general, the originals and fan missions up to the time a little bit as well, because, and I'm not saying that they were bad or anything, I'm just saying that what I really wanted to do was to have an open city, Cityscape with rooftops that I could get on top of, and really feel like it was 3-dimensional, and that I could climb it and look across the vista of those buildings. And so Merkbell was my attempt to do that, to make this big open city space. And of course, I realized, sadly, after investing so much time, that I was winding up with Hall of Mirrors and all these vertex problems. So I had to close some of it off.
Yeah.
I still think it was fairly successful in that regard, but yeah, I just wanted to have an open city, and so that was my inspiration. That was my starting inspiration for Merkbell, and I wanted to be able to do lots of different things in that space, not just the main mission, but have these side missions that would come up, and just be able to enjoy exploring the space and have little stories and vignettes in each of the buildings. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay, so you wanted to, and I think that maybe goes for all of your missions. We make a step back now, but you wanted to do it as you think it should be. If I read it right.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that wants to watch Lord of the Rings and then write a piece of fiction that is very, very true to that timeline. I want to do my own thing, my own interpretation, right? So.
Yeah, then you came up in 2000 with your very famous Calendra Cistern, which in what I think, it was 2000. The second game was just out.
Yeah.
And you already made a mission like with an in-game shop in the level, like, for example, a very ambitious. You had like, voiceovers already, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, with Mercedes.
I believe my sister recorded Mercedes' voice for me.
Ah, Calendra's sister, so it is. No, but how's that? Like, how did you come up at that time already with such a thing? Like, because I think it was, a very.
You mean such a thing?
Yeah,
with
you are like, okay, it's the early 2000s, or it's the year 2000. Like, Thief editor is not, so much used by the community, and you come up with something like that. Have you always been that ambitious, where you're like, okay, I want to do that, and I want to try that out?
I think he's talking about the in-game shop.
Not just
shop.
that, but all the
special mechanics.
At that time. You just have to put it in that context of the time for a fan mission. What you did was very ambitious, and it worked in most cases. So is this your goal, like to do something that hasn't been done before, or to expand what was done so far?
So first of all, it is a little foggy. Like, I'm not sure if I was the first one to do an in-game shop, for example. I don't know if I was. But I am, like, I have a vision of a thing, the way that I want it to be presented, the way that I want it to feel, all of that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I do tend to obsess on the thing until it is the way that I want it to be. And of course, that got me into trouble with my wife working on Thief missions, because
the time
I would come home and spend this time on this thing, and she'd say, what the fuck are you doing on this thing? Why are you doing that? So yeah, I am ambitious. In fact, as a little aside story, Calendra's legacy, the 3 missions, well, that almost didn't see light of day because I was having an argument with my wife about it, and she wanted me to stop working on it. And I said, well, okay, I tell you what, I will have it done on this day. I gave her a date, it was like sometime in the spring, right? I don't remember the date exactly now, but I said, I will have it done by this day and I will release it on this day, and that's it, no matter what, whether it's a wreck or not, and then I will be done with it and I won't do it anymore, okay?
Yeah.
And she said, okay. And she said,
Between the
okay.
lines in the README file, you could like imagine like something like this was in the background, because you were talking about the people that help you and like with the deadline, the release date, blah 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 blah. And I was wondering, like, how would someone with creating a fan mission make himself a release date? You know, like why this pressure? And then I was thinking of, considering his age, you know, wife, family, there could be something like that. So yeah, it was very interesting.
It was exactly that, yeah.
And you did it, right?
Did it. And what's funny about that story, right, is that in the aftermath, I had no intentions of ever making another fan mission. That was it. I was done. But I started getting these emails from people, and I don't. Maybe you have other questions you want to ask me, but I'm about to tell you the story of how I got a job in the game industry. If you're
Please,
interested in
go
hearing
ahead.
that, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So what happened was, right, I started getting these emails, and they were super nice. They were just so like, it was just fun to get these emails from people that downloaded this thing that I had slaved over, and they loved it so much, and they had questions about, you know, the dead cat, or, you know, or whatever. The dead cat was a joke side mission in Merkbell, right? But anyway,
that is another question from Pletrimus, actually.
Anyway, so I got this email this one day, and it was like really fawning. It was like, oh man, this mission is so great. I just love it so much. And have you ever thought about working in the game industry? And the English was not super great, so I couldn't tell if it was a very young person or not. It seemed like it was maybe a 12-year-old kid, right? And so I didn't pay any attention to it, really.
Uh-oh.
But it was Rafael Colantonio. It was it was the email from him, and he had a studio named Arcane Studios at the time that he had made, and he was playing Calendra's Legacy.
Amazing.
And he was persistent. He sent me a couple more emails, and I blew off 2 of them, and then the third one, he was like, no, really, have you ever thought about working in the industry? And then it started to dawn on me that maybe this was somebody, you know, in Europe or something like this. And so then we started to have this conversation. And I have to admit that I had never thought about working in games prior to that, because, you know, I had a house, and I was making an okay wage and middle management at this financial company, and my wife worked there as well. In fact, I had met her there. And yeah, the thought of jumping off a cliff into the unknown of games, which I knew were very, I mean, it's not as stable, right? It's less security. You feel like, whoa, maybe who knows if you're at this studio or this studio from year to year, right? So yeah, it was a lot to think about. But yeah, he was a super nice guy. He still is a super nice guy. I'm still friends with him to this day, and so I decided, okay, I guess I'm doing this.
Oh,
so it fell into my lap.
So of course his bad English is he's a French.
So when I say that his English was not so good, what I mean was I could definitely tell that he was either a kid or he was not a native speaker.
Yeah.
But his English was still, you know, quite good.
Yeah.
I mean, he could communicate just fine. And his English now is, of course, fantastic. I mean, he has a French accent, but his English now is perfect. So
okay. But that's amazing that such a, like, let's say a little thing, maybe, you know, for most people meaningless, except you and the community, has such an impact on your life. And I also have to admit, respect to your wife.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Respect to her, because I worked remotely for Arcane Studios for the first year, and then Raf said, "Hey, we would need you to come to France." And I remember her sitting on the couch when I told her this, and she was just sobbing. And she said, "I don't want to go to France."
And I can totally relate to that.
But you know what? She loved it. It was one of the best years of her life. Once we got there, she just loved it. She loved it so much. So
Yeah, I think it's a totally different culture, you know, from what did you say, Minnesota, right?
right, Minnesota.
And then going to France, to Lyon. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting culture shock, a good one. I can imagine that. But anyways, it's like I always have respect, like, because I think especially in the gaming industry, like it's not so. It's very often that people have to move a lot, and
Yeah.
I always respect whoever, the wives, the husbands, that agree with that and agree to go that way with you. That's pretty impressive. But back to the game. So this was still Calendra's turn, right? If I got you right.
No, this was Calendra's legacy that he was playing.
Okay. Well, because I was a bit wondering if I got you right there. So this was your end to the thief community, right?
Yep, it was.
And because of course, you have been active for a while, when I'm right, in the forums, but not creating stuff anymore. But you know, it must have been a very stressful time. And what I can read out of the README file, what was the just tell us about, like, how you came up with the idea for the legacy thing, like how you decided to make 3 missions, and what you wanted to go for, and did you achieve everything except the limitations of the engine?
Okay, so
Or is there any
Calendra's-
secret you couldn't integrate, you know, that's still where you think, oh yeah, I would have loved to integrate that, but it didn't work, or whatever?
No, not at all. In fact, what happened was a little bit the opposite. Calendra's legacy is a byproduct of what we would call feature creep or scope creep, in that I wanted to do something very ambitious with it, and I had this idea, right? But I knew it was so ambitious that I wanted to get some help. So of course, you cannot lay all of the credit at my feet for Calendra's legacy, because I had some great help. You know, Lazarus did the cutscenes, and Lone Star was a guy who did the sound, and he recorded Garrett's voice for me. He did Garrett's voice, and he did a lot of other sounds as well. And then there was Thumper, who he did some of the scripting for the. He did the scripting for the knife, the short sword that drained. If you used it, it would drain health from your enemy, and I believe it gave it to you. But I think if you hit zombies with it, it actually worked in reverse. But anyway, he also did some of the custom files and stuff like that. Now, what is true is that because those guys were part of the project, right, they had ideas which caused the scope to grow, and it grew into 3 missions, right? What happened to me was a little unfortunate in that Lone Star had personal things come up where he sort of disappeared. He said, "Hey guys, I can't do this," and so he left. And Thumper left as well. He had some other things come up, I guess. I couldn't reach him after that. And so I was left with this partially finished set of 3 maps that I then had to finish on my own or abandon, right? And Lazarus stuck through me just to the very end, enough to get those movies done. And I was really super grateful to him for that. And of course, my sister again recorded Mercedes' voice. So
Oh,
I
lovely.
plugged that in, and she has some dialogue where she's waiting for you under the bridge in Midnight in what is it, Midnight in Merkbell or something like this.
The third one, that would be the second one. The third one is
Winter's Eve?
Yeah, Winter's Eve, right. This is by the Grindle and Boggs factory, right? She's waiting under the bridge there. So, yeah. Anyway, that was how it swelled into 3 missions.
and this was the first time you had a team behind you. Before that, it was all you.
Yeah, that's right.
So in general, like, okay, they all helped you and they all spread their ideas, and then for whatever reason, they left you with all this, and you had to finish it, right?
I did have to finish it, but I still have to give them, lots and lots of credit because they did help a lot. It's just that I probably wouldn't have done 3 missions if it wasn't for some of that scope creep, right?
Yeah, I think the features are, as you said, very ambitious. The videos, I love them, especially for that time, for a fan-made creation that is really, actually, because I replayed it today again, the shadow, how he made Garrett look in the scenes, like I think
it's great, right?
Yeah, it's just the shadow, and that's how, like, I would imagine, like, why all the people just see him as a shadow, and that is my imagination of Garrett all the time, and he totally nailed it. Yeah, great job, and all the features and stuff. It's huge. It's really huge. In hindsight, what do you think how the mission stands the test of time?
That is something that I don't know. I mean, I have watched videos on YouTube. It's been many, many years since I watched a video, but back in the day, I watched some people do playthroughs of those 3 missions, and it was really fun to see somebody else play through it and enjoy it. So I guess that's up to other people to decide how well it holds up. So the idea for the sequel, for the Calendra's Legacy, was actually a very simple idea. It was just like, hey, this Silix that you stole actually has a much darker secret behind it, and I wanted to have Garrett have to take it and destroy it, and that was it. So it was a very simple idea that then swelled into all these missions.
Yeah, maybe we should just give a little recap. So in the Calendra's Legacy, you still have that thing, and you start meeting with Basso, right? And then maybe next you can do a better recap of this.
Yeah, so in Cistern we steal the Silix, and when it comes to Calendra's Legacy, we are preparing first to go and sell the thing. There's a little bit of a story behind tricking Lexus into, or Mercedes, because her name is Mercedes Porsche Lexus. So
it's quite silly.
And we tricked Lexus, and we took the Silix for ourselves. We have, in the first mission, we have Basso getting us the equipment and the room in the inn, and getting ready for the night that we sell the Silix. When we do this, the second night is, of course, meeting with the buyer, or let's say the buyer's assistant. And
By
then
the
we
way, I don't.
sorry.
Just to interject here, I don't know if probably somebody figured it out, but the buyer's name is actually a riff on Asmodeus, the Duchess Sudemsa. That's an anagram for Asmodeus. So it's meant to be that she's some kind of devilish.
Ah, I didn't figure that out, but
Neither did I. She does come across a little bit devilish with the voice. The voice acting on her is it's
amazing.
yeah.
Like a witch sound a bit, and
Yeah.
it really nailed the old lady sound.
And it's not too obvious that it's devilish. It's just a hint that something's wrong.
Yeah, it's like Cruella de Vil.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to throw out that piece of trivia.
No,
No,
it's
that's
perfect.
cool. I
Yeah.
think that's what people are looking for. Like,
Yeah, they're not looking for me recapping the missions. I'll tell you that. But let's recap. So we have a buyer lined up. We meet at the bar, and then we have to take the Silix to Alcandor, and then he tricks us, and the zombie invasion begins, and that's for the and of course we decide to steal the Silix back and destroy it, and after that it's just the mission 3. It's an aftermath. I'll be honest, I mission 2 is my favorite mission of all times, and the third one I didn't really grow to love it until this year. Now I love it as well, so I'm a little bit sketchy on the storyline of the third mission, but as far as I know, it's there's some side missions, and I'll be honest, I don't really. Do you remember, Supreme?
what do you mean?
The third mission. What's the third mission about?
You have to get to this Hemorrhoids complex, and I have to be honest.
It's the Keepers.
Keepers, yeah.
Yeah, and the mission lost me there. There, I didn't finish it at that point. That's why I wanted you to do the recap.
The third mission was a bit rushed because I had this deadline, and
Yeah, I think
Saturnine.
you feel that.
Yeah,
Saturnine
still good one.
built the Keeper interior space, and he did a pretty darn good job. I think it was, for the time, it was beautiful. It had these colored lights. It was very dark, but you got the sense that light was coming through these stained glass windows into the Keeper location. And there were some cool things about that mission. The idea that the Keepers could turn invisible on you, and this creepy little girl, she was taken from the original, from the thief briefings for, what was it, the second, or I think it was the second Thief 2 or something like this. But anyway, at the end you fight this demon, this demoness, and there's this thing about masks and whatever. But it was Rafael Colantonio. One of his emails that he sent to me was he was so surprised by his combat with this demoness at the end of that map in this cave, because you break the seals on this door and you go in, and she teleports around and is attacking you from different locations. So if you try to get up close to her and slash her, she will disappear and reappear somewhere else. And so this really surprised him, and I think it's probably one of the reasons that he extended the job offer to me, was just I was doing technical things, making things happen that he wasn't expecting,
Oh yeah, that fight is quite hard as well.
We joke about, sometimes, so the guy I work with, Jeremy Catlin, he also, and I wish I could remember his Thief forum handle, but he did some fan missions, and we joke sometimes about the hoops you had to jump through. You you create this blue room under the ground, and there's a frog, and it's hopping around, and there's something attached to it, and it's sending a stem to a receptron, and the scripting you had to do to make things work in the dark editor and to do the things you wanted to do were crazy.
Can imagine that.
My question is, like, you said you came from the management thing,
And then you jumped into editing this as a hobby. But how did you achieve to learn all this?
So I have always been a very creative person, and obviously working in finance at a financial institution was not very creative. So I needed that outlet at night, and so I was so driven to tell the story that I actually printed out the tutorials. And I don't know if you remember, there was a Thief fan mission made by a guy named Totality. He was super young kid at the time back then, but he made this mission. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like Stop Thief or something like that. And it was very basic. You went up the street and reached through the window and grabbed this big, beautiful, lustrous gem. And then the guy came out, you could hear his voice.
Rogue's Honor?
I don't know the name of the mission.
By Tristan Ettridge Totality.
Maybe. But what was so great about it was that you were assumed to be this young kid version of Garrett. It's like an alt fiction version of how Garrett becomes Garrett, right? Or a thief becomes a thief, right? Because the guy comes out and he's like, thief, thief, thief. He's yelling at you. And prior to that, you weren't a thief in theory. So those words, the way that he recorded them, they sort of they have this reverb, this echo, where it simulates the name thief sinking into your psyche, right? Becoming a part of you.
Okay, I will have to play that. So hopefully it's Rogue's Honor.
Yeah, but he was doing things. The point is, he was doing things with stims and receptrons and all of the dirty parts of Unreal, the powerful parts of Unreal, or not Unreal, but Dromed. That by looking at what he was doing, I could also learn how to make my own maps, right?
Okay.
So you guys were pioneering this in those days? I suppose the knowledge was not there in the community?
No, it was not there at all. You were literally looking at, dev notes from Looking Glass and what few there were, and just trial and error, trying things and then documenting them and putting them on the forum and talking to each other. So it was very much, back then, it was very much like Wild West. Hey, we're exploring. Hey, I figured this out.
That must have been a very exciting time.
It was very fun. It was super fun, yeah.
I think this gives us an idea why people are still, like 17 years after the release, are still mentioning you in this high regard. Because I think those old members, they spread your legacy, so it's still young members love your missions. They can put it into the context of time, how ambitious you and what great things you did, I think, for the community, that you showed, okay, this is possible. And I think that was a huge inspiration for generations to come in that FM community. Yeah, I really think that.
It's very cool to hear that the hours of work I put in were enjoyed and that people still have fun with them, because of course that's one of the biggest reasons to do it, is to just like give this thing away and see if people love it. And so that's fantastic. I'm super happy.
Definitely. I mean, I'll have to say that the missions like Legacy and a couple of others, like they broke the mold made by the Looking Glass. They kind of went further, you know. It's not just like I don't want to say copy paste, but it's not made in the same format. Kind of breaks the boundaries that they had, and you know, like you said with the guard saying how you doing, you know. At a certain point, when you're playing the original missions, you kind of get to know the world. You know where the boundaries are, and it stops being a place and it becomes a mission. Because nothing surprises you anymore, and then the NPC going past you is not a guard anymore. It's just a pile of code and a 3D model, right? You don't feel as immersed anymore. And when missions like yours came out, it's, you know, there were new things. Again, it put you into the shoes when you started playing Thief, because you didn't know what was possible. Because clearly, if this can happen, then a lot of other things can happen. And you were, well, at least I was on the edge of my seat with excitement, you know, trying to what else is there, you know. And it did feel like a real world to me.
Cool. That's very cool to hear.
Yeah.
There were other big names, you know, people that at the time that I was doing fan missions, there were other guys and perhaps gals as well. I don't know, but you know, there were other names in the community that I really looked up to and thought were great. You know, there was Saturnine and Mocus and Totality and Sledge, and anyway, so yeah, all of those folks in their own way contributed to this collective of information on how you could do a thing. And so then that collective set of information, I would look at it and say, hey, if you can do this with this, you can use this to do all kinds of things. I could also do this with that thing, right? And so without that collective, you know, discovery and documentation of what we had all been working on, those missions would have been far less.
Oh yeah.
I think the community thought was a different back then, because you guys had to work together and you had to figure things out. And I think this really feels like being part of a community. I think that's what the older community members are complaining about today. Like maybe that, but there's not so much to explore anymore. So because you guys did it already.
I don't know, but I do think, yes, it did feel very much like a community, and man, if you can find new things to do with the engine, props to you. But
do you know how the engine turned out today?
I have no idea the state of it.
Okay, because yeah, there is now, it's called New Dark. So they it came out of nowhere, as far as I know. Suddenly someone posted it, and there was this New Dark, and suddenly you could do different things. So the limits were like higher and higher. Now, yep, maybe next you can maybe give me an inside view on that.
Well, we have to give credit to the guys. I would correct you that it didn't come out of nowhere. As far as I know, they were working on, you know, they were patching the game even before that, and the New Dark, I think it's just there were a few things were reworked, and a lot of new.
It's still a subtractive editor. Is it still based on the same?
Yeah.
But they changed a lot. So now, like, missions today, they look totally different. You know, we have now like the HD mods where all the textures are way higher, and of course those new limits, so you can create more.
Do you remember the cell count limit from the old days, Anthony?
I don't. I know it was low.
Yeah, I think it came up from like 8,000. Right now, as it's at 32,000. So it's yeah, it would multiply it a couple of times, and it's. I mean, still people hit it. In my map, I hit the cell count cap, and I had to reduce it. So no matter how far they're gonna increase it, people are always gonna hit
course.
that limit, but I do wonder what would happen with. Actually, I'm thinking maybe if you had a higher cell count, maybe the legacy would never come out.
Yeah, interesting point of view, actually.
Because it keeps you,
My wife would have ensured that it would have never come. But
she would have like, oh, there's this new dark coming out, and she would like just take off the internet.
But you know
Anthony'd
what?
be like, okay, this is the date, and she'd be like, this is in 2013.
We've had that conversation several times, though, where we've said, if you had made me stop working on this map, I would have never gotten this job, and you would have never been able to live in France, and on and on. So it's funny how these little things in life change everything, right?
Yeah.
But looking back, like talking about the limitations, I think then that's even more impressive what you guys back in the days were able to do, especially with the first two missions of Calendra's Legacy. I think still today they are pretty impressive. Like the first one where you walk around that town and Merkbell, right? The first part, and there's like. Of course, it's really beautiful, and the whole way the city feels. You get a feeling for the city, or for that part of the city. And then there's so many different side things, like that tomb with the little riddles, which really impressed me because it's just a side note. You don't have to find it, but it's just there for you to explore. And then all those sewers that lead to like one spot, and they have those fast water going down, and it's still today it's like, oh wow, you will remember this.
And the cozy
and
rain.
of course the Arkan's tomb, that was a total homage to the S1, I think it's S1, the Tomb of Horrors module for Dungeons and Dragons. So
okay. Since I'm not into D&D, I didn't get it.
I mean, that whole tomb, I still remember the first time that I played it, and I'll say it. I think it was the best puzzle that I ever did inside a game. I didn't go to any tutorials. Nothing was too cryptic that I couldn't figure it out. I don't want to spoil this one for the readers, but the part where you have the nitwit and the simpleton and the four doors, I mean, that was just fascinating to me, and the feeling it gave me when I figured it out, it was amazing. And this is just a part of it. I mean, every puzzle in that tomb, that was like the best hour and a half experience of solving it.
I think what was so great about it is that it's self-explaining, and you have to figure out a bit, but you make progress each time you try something, and it's not too cryptic, as you said. Yeah, it's well done. It's many riddles in later Thief missions, they were like, ugh.
Too cryptic or too easy, or just didn't hit the spot.
And of course you had the feeling like, okay, I don't need to have to do this. It's not part of my progress in the main campaign. It's just optional. So, it's different than when it would block you from getting forward in the story. Then it would be maybe frustrating, like other puzzles. But this one was really great.
It was optional, but once you were in there, it was like, F the Silix. I'm doing this now. And when you came out, it was like, wait, why was I in Merkbell? Oh, the Silix. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Okay, yeah, I'm coming.
But there was this tomb way far away from my route.
And you came to meet with Basso, and he's like, okay, I got your room ready, and you're like, shh, dude, I have to show you something.
He's standing in the rain. Where's Garrett? He was supposed to be here.
And you come out of the
great
cave
thing,
with riches.
It was a great mechanic in Thief, I thought. Oh, by the way, I think there were some cheap shots in the tomb where a fake step would drop out from under you, and that wasn't so fun. So cool. I wasn't perfect on that execution. However, I did want to say that I think Thief had a nice mechanic of the loot being useful for buying gear for your next map, right? Because even if you had no objective related to the tomb, you knew that all this extra loot could be used to buy those fire arrows or whatever. So that's a little bit of a nice incentive there in the game arc.
That's
Of course, you
totally
put something in
true.
the shop that you couldn't possibly buy.
Then to like so this mission which was very impressive, and then you like shit's really running in the second one. It starts out really nice. You meet with a buyer. Suddenly she tells you that you don't get the whole money, so you have to bring it to a certain person. Don't want to spoil too much. With the time limit, which was an idea. Let me put it that.
Yeah, time limits are never like super duper fun in games in general, I think, unless they're really lenient. And then it's almost like, well, was there a point to having the time limit because it's so lenient? But yeah. It's valid criticism.
So, and then you do that. Then you drop the thing there. Then something happens that was not planned, of course, because otherwise it would have been boring. And from that time, until that point, I was really like, you were like a god creator to me. And then I lost, I lost my religion. Because I have to, of course, it's always like a type of players, and I hate zombies.
Right.
And this mission from that certain spot, until this, it was great. You meet with Mercedes, and then she makes maybe the crow. That is one question I have. Like, was it necessary with that Lara Croft and her ass line? Whose idea was it? Was it your idea?
Yeah.
No, it was the wife's idea.
Don't recall.
Okay, because it was like, you have to imagine, like, I was just having the conversation with her, and then I left, and I knew, okay, now there are all the zombies everywhere. And then, like, I was far away from the apartment, but I could still hear her voice, and she's like, don't you think my ass is hotter than Lara Croft's or something like that? And that totally, like, what? Was it? So, but then all the zombies, do you think, and it's, do you think that you maybe overdid it a bit with all those creatures?
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever fought the rocking horse ghost. Did you ever run into
was it in the cemetery?
In the house in the
cemetery.
Yeah.
That was the most fun undead thing, I think, that we did for that whole bit where the undead break out. My favorite was the rocking horse ghost.
There is no fun in undead creatures. It's undead, not fun dead, No, because at that point it was really stressing me out, and of course now I had the pressure. Like, okay, we have Anthony. He will take part in this, and of course I have to play this so that I get an impression of that. And next, how I was complaining. But of course, it's just my personal thing, because there were many great things. First of all, the city looks amazing till today. That the atmosphere is really great, and I think that's what Clitremus meant. It's the first time you really had the feeling for this is a city and not just a map. And then like with a moving bridge, that was pretty amazing. I like that.
Oh yeah.
And especially because no one could follow you on this, because this was an object and not an environmental thing. But yeah, it was really hard, and I think for people like me,
I think the undead, I think it's very valid that there were a lot of players who didn't like haunts and didn't like zombies and things like that, because the feedback that they provided was not as good as humans for stealth. And so if you really like stealth gameplay, and that's what you're playing Thief for, then the undead chapter where they all come back, that is going to be frustrating and much less fun, I think. So yeah, I think that's a very valid,
as I said, it's always personal, and I think if like maybe like half of it, I think it was just too much. because you have to orientate in that, because you have to find the right path. And for me, it was like, oh, why do they have to like 3 in a row? Like, please stop it. But on the other hand, of course, you had great designs in that. Were they some of the creatures? Did you design them by yourself or one of your helpers?
I did. I designed them myself, and I designed them to be really, really lethal. Just
Yeah.
awful things.
Yeah.
And the reason, and of course, at the time, not only am I a novice designer, but and knowing that that's not going to be fun for everybody. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to transform the city into a completely different.
You definitely succeeded.
It needed to change 100% from what it was, where it was you had rule of the streets pretty much, and no one was hostile. And then once that pressure hit, I wanted it to be so that you really had to use what you had learned about the city in the downtime. You explored all those streets, you learned the city, and now you have to use the rooftops, use the windows, avoid these things at all costs, because they're going to tear you limb from limb.
The
But
water canal.
yeah, exactly, swimming, whatever. But yeah, again, I understand that would not be fun for everybody. So,
but then this was one thing, but the other thing, and that is like you told before, that you wanted to put a lot of things in there, and I think you did that as well, like with all those little things and artifacts you could find to create this weapon. And I think this was, I haven't seen that at that time or for many years to come like this.
that was sort of the payoff, right? Was that this weapon was a one-shot use, that it destroyed every single undead in a certain radius, right? It sent out a stem that destroyed them all. So that was sort of you giving the middle finger to all of those really annoying undead if you bothered to assemble that weapon, right?
Hmm.
The BFG.
But since a lot of missions were a lot simpler and a lot less complex, for a long time I did read the readable where it says how you combine this, but I always threw it aside, like this cannot possibly be in the game.
Yeah.
Years later, I first I assembled the the amulet.
I thought the same actually, and I think we're not the only ones.
You didn't think it was true?
I thought, like, no. I'm gonna have to find the circle and place the 5 objects there. No, this isn't happening in the game.
But then we figured out, yes.
And yeah, it happens. Yeah, the weapon is created.
Yeah, it's real.
The cake is the weapon is no lie.
I mean,
the cake.
the Supreme was talking about losing the religion. We argued a lot in the past month when we were discussing this mission. I, on the other hand, I really like it. I am the same in the respect that I don't enjoy zombies that much, especially if I have to go into a tomb or a crypt and there's zombies there. So I found it a little bit annoying, but it's not always perfect. And of course, here we're dealing with very evil people, and terrible events are happening. And I did like it because it kind of broke your mold. Because I feel like players sometimes tend to like restrict themselves to their own play style, and this kind of ghosters want to stay invisible all the time. And if you want to stay invisible all the time with the zombies, you're going to have a bad time. But if you kind of if you use all the resources at your disposal, it gets easier, and you can do it. And just like you said, with the being able to move throughout the town before that happens, and then having to use that knowledge, that was just amazing. And where it comes more and more amazing is with the replay value. I'll give this to Supreme. For the first time player, it's very chaotic. When the zombies come, you're not prepared, and all those things. But now that I've played the mission, like I don't even know the number, but it's a lot. It just gets better and better, and kind of it was present throughout the years that I played. When I think I played it in the first half a year that I installed my first fan mission, and then I like played it. I'm pretty sure like 3 times a year or 2 times a year at least, and yeah, it just gets.
You got a point there with the replayability. That is really high, and I have to give you that. That maybe for the first time I'm like, oh no, I hate this guy. And then after a while you get to appreciate what you've actually done there or tried to do. And that is another point, as you said, Anthony, like, okay, now you're really, now this is really evil what's happening there. And it's not like in other missions, there's like, oh, now, it's apocalypse. And then there's like three guys walking around.
Yeah. Like you were saying, yeah. The more you play, I mean, the play style between me and Supreme kind of differs. I try to break the mission, and then I'll do whatever I want to get it to be played as I want it to be. And the fun thing about the mission 2 is that as I was playing it, my play style changed on that mission. First time I was playing it the intended way. You deliver the Silix, you get the Silix back after the zombie invasion happens, and so forth. And then you start using the water canals more, the rooftops more, and then later on, because you played it a lot, and I found out that you don't really have to trigger the zombie invasion.
I mean, hopefully there's a little bit of something there for everybody. I guess that was what I was trying to do, was have a little bit of something for every type of player.
Yeah.
Did you say there was a question about the cat, the dead cat?
Yes. Also by Clitrimus. He asked, how did you come up with the Lost Cat Easter egg? Is there a personal story behind it?
Oh, it's kind of a joke. It's kind of a trope that you, in RPG games or these kinds of things, there's always that mission to rescue my cat, and it's always kind of an insult to the adventurer, because the last thing they want to do is go rescue a cat, right? And so, but all these RPG games seem to have this kind of, please, can you rescue my cat adventure, or a quest, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to do that quest, but put a twist on it, so that, hey, I'm missing my cat, but you find it and it's dead, and so it's sad. And we were just having fun with that trope.
Okay.
More than that, does Zombie has it, if I remember.
Yeah.
So the personal story behind is that you are annoyed by missions like that, or quests. So you made an homage to that. Is that right?
Yeah.
So since your time is really you don't have so much time, I think we should slowly come to the finish here and do the to the community. One question from the community: what would it take for you to ever make another thief mission?
Oh my God.
A divorce?
Boy, I mean, it would be a lot, because now I make games for my actual job, and so to come home and to have to make a fan mission, it would be would be very, very difficult for me at this point. And I'm also, I've kind of moved on into this other hobby. If you go to my website, which is thebluebard.com, you can see where all my time goes now, which is
Impressive.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Let me.
So yeah, I'm probably not
count
going to
it.
make another.
Yeah.
I'm probably
But-
not going to make
so-
another fan mission.
What's with that? Because I saw Twitter when I was stalking you on the internet. You made a Dungeons and Dragons table with a screen. Did I see that right?
Yeah, so I play every other Monday with a bunch of guys from work, and
Yeah.
they come over and they sit at this table. I have the television is it's a flat screen underneath the table, and so I have painted miniatures, and we move them around, and the map can scroll.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, that's very impressive, and then you have all those minifigures that you are painting right now at the moment.
Indeed.
Then you write the novels, you create all like scenarios, is it called, for D&D, and maps. And whoa, you are such a creative guy with so many talents. That's very impressive, and I can actually understand, as you said, that after a while you move on. And at the beginning you mentioned that like creating those fan mission was like a distraction from work, and now of course creating stuff like that is your job. So of
Right.
course you don't want to do that all the time at home as well. But maybe you can play a joke on your wife, like
Hey,
Like, hey.
honey, I've decided to.
Calendra's reckoning.
Right, exactly.
And that,
It would be a reckoning.
Yeah. What is your what are your thoughts like when you hear that you are still a prominent, a very famous name in the community, even with the community members changed a lot?
Well, I don't take it too. I don't let it go to my head, because again, as I pointed out, so many people were collaborating at that time. I feel really grateful, humbled that people thought that it's worth playing even now. I think that's fantastic, and I feel humbled by that. I'm happy to have done it and shared it. It was a great experience. It was super fun, and it changed my life for the better in so many ways. So, yeah, I mean, thank you. Thanks for loving my stuff. I'm super happy that you
Yeah.
do.
I think it's Purah's legacy.
Definitely.
Definitely. So another question is from the speedrunners forums, or the Discord channel. I mentioned that to you early, but with that guest book in the Arcane, what was it? Were people at the Arcane office aware of the party sign-in book reference? So because in Calendra Cistern there's a guest book, and in Lady Boyd's party from Dishonored there's a guest book as well. So, and you worked on both of them, right?
It's true. It's true.
And is that a coincidence?
You know what's funny is I think it's probably when you work on a party mission, you think, oh, well, it'd be nice to have a guest book here. And I don't actually think I was the one that at first thought of signing the guest book
Yeah.
at the Boyle party. I think somebody else said, "Oh, you should totally have that book be signable," and then I said, "Okay, yeah, so I'll definitely do that." So it was actually some collaboration there too, but
Okay.
yeah, of course, I did. I'm the same person, so I do think similarly when I approached that party mission.
Yeah. What I think is really interesting, that you stayed with like stealthy games because you were taking part on Dishonored, like Dishonored 2 as well. I don't know.
Did not work on Dishonored 2.
But you worked on Prey, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and both games I really enjoyed a lot because I played them, and not because of you. It was really great for me to find out that you also worked on Prey, because I think this game is a bit underrated by many fans, and I think it's like, yeah, it's maybe the system shock factor, but yeah, it's great that you still are making games that I enjoy personally, and now it's nice to had to talk to a person of that. Yeah, that's great. Next, do you have any questions?
Well, I mean, is the community going to make the next Thief game?
There is actually one thing maybe you didn't recognize, that the Dark mod is something that is based on the Doom engine, Doom 3, and they made a total, I don't know if it's still a total conversion of that, but it's an editor where you can create, like thief-like missions in the Doom 3 engine, and they did a good job on that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
it's not just a mod; it's a standalone product that anybody can download, and it's pretty much Thief in a I wouldn't say better because I'm a fan of Thief engine, but it's a
they
newer.
did better than like IDOS did.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I prefer the original engine as well to play, but it's like some distraction from your Thief day. So, but as I said, I think next he always has a lot of detail going on, and I think now maybe we should take the end of this for his spotlight. Maybe if he has some questions.
We usually go more into missions and paths through the mission. This time was a little bit different. So perhaps just maybe I want to call out the fish in the butt joke.
Oh, wow. I had totally forgotten about that. Yeah, that's...
Explain it, please.
So there's this fishmonger when you explore the city, and there's this guy, and he's writing in his diary, let's say, and he's saying something like, I don't know what the guy's name is. I'm just gonna call him Pete. It's not Pete.
John Smith.
John Smith. He says, I think I really went too far with John. And he explained how he had a fight with John, and he shoved a fish in his butt, and then John plunged into the canal and drowned.
John comes back as a zombie.
Exactly.
And the fish is still there. And you see it poking out. And I believe this was Thumper. I believe that Thumper thought this little vignette up, this little joke, and put it in.
It's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I usually avoid the zombie, so I found this out a few days earlier when I Clatremus's ghost report, and yeah, he says that there's a zombie with the dead cat, and there's also a zombie with the fish. So. But you know,
little childish jokes like the Lara Croft comparison with a butt.
We were all much younger back then.
Yeah. You were 30 about, so yeah.
Okay, just our age right now.
Yeah, but we are like that, so it's true.
Yeah.
But Anthony, actually, I have the feeling that you're not like you are a man, so we don't change a lot until the end. You know, you still play games with your friends every Monday, so
true. I love games.
Yeah. So I think this was a very different episode. Actually, since we are not pros, it was hard for me, especially to keep focused. But I hope it was still enjoyable for the listeners and, of course, for you, Anthony.
It was super fun. I really had a great time.
Thank you, because I was really worried yesterday. I was telling Next, like, oh, I'm so nervous. Hopefully, it doesn't feel like a waste of time for him at the end, and blah blah blah. You know, like, what you think when you're like in our position. But yeah, it was a pleasure, and I hope the listeners will think the same. Hope we could give a little inside view of your world and of the creation of Calendra's series. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Really, it was a pleasure, and I think this maybe I will call it like a podcast's legacy, whatever. The episode. So,
Yes.
fellow taffers,
Well,
thanks for your time.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say you're welcome, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you after that, like, is there anything last you want to say? Send to the community, maybe like greet. Do you want to greet someone?
I would just say, wow, keep sneaking around.
Oh,
Yeah.
we will. Mergblood is ours now. Mergbell, sorry.
That's a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, Anthony. Yeah, next.
Sorry, yeah, just
This feels so amateur.
yeah. I'm just we're just like I got goosebumps that we're talking with Purah here. But anyway, can you spell out the name of the website that you mentioned earlier? I had trouble finding it. Just for the others.
It is thebluebard.com. So TheBlueBard.
I will link it in the description and in the forums.
Also, if anybody would like to read any of your books, where can we find your books?
You can find them on Amazon.
Or Lulu.com, right?
The Lulu is for Dungeons and Dragons related stuff.
Okay.
But if you want to read the novels that I published through Tor, Tor Fantasy, then those you can still buy on Amazon.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah. As I said, can I now make like the outro? Is everyone fine?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Green light for Alex. No, as I said, thank you for being part of this. It was a pleasure and very, very interesting, very funny, and yeah, very impressive what you're doing, and keep doing all the great stuff you do, even if it's not thief related. I think we can appreciate it anyways, or at least have respect for what you're doing. So see you, and yeah, I wish you a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
I need to stand by the fire. It's fucking cold.